The vast emptiness of space stretched out before him, cold and silent. Mark, a young pilot, had never imagined he'd find himself stranded in the middle of nowhere. His ship, a small transport vessel, had malfunctioned just days into his routine trip. Now he was stuck, his communication system dead and his navigation control fried beyond repair. He floated in space, far from any known planet or station, alone. His only hope was that someone, anyone, would pick up his distress signal. But after what felt like an eternity of waiting, Mark had almost given up. The stars outside his window no longer seemed as distant and beautiful as they once had. They were reminders of how isolated he had become. Then, just as his energy reserves began to dwindle and despair started to settle in, a flicker of light on his console caught his attention. His heart skipped a beat. The screen flashed, and a soft, melodic voice filled the cabin. "Hello, human. I can help you. Follow these coordinates. You will be safe." Mark blinked, unsure of what he was hearing. The voice was calm, soothing even, but there was an alien quality to it that sent a shiver down his spine. He ran a quick diagnostic, but his systems were too damaged to trace the source of the signal. It was like it came out of nowhere. For a moment, doubt crept in. What if this was a trap? What if he was being lured into something dangerous? But as he looked at his dwindling supplies and his dwindling hope, the possibility of help seemed too good to pass up. He didn't have much of a choice. Taking a deep breath, Mark keyed in the coordinates on the control panel. His hands were shaking, but his mind was set. The message hadn't specified much, only that he'd be safe. Safe was what he needed most right now. The ship hummed to life as the engines powered up, pushing through the black void toward the unknown destination. Mark sat back in his chair, his eyes fixed on the navigation screen. The stars blurred as the ship moved faster than it had in days, and the sense of purpose returned, however uncertain. Minutes felt like hours as he followed the strange coordinates. A part of him couldn't help but wonder who or what had sent the message. Was it an alien race offering help, or was it something else? As the ship moved deeper into space, the lonely stars were soon replaced by the sight of a lush, vibrant planet slowly growing larger in his view. The planet was unlike anything Mark had ever seen. It glowed softly in the distance, its surface dotted with sprawling oceans, forests, and what appeared to be floating structures. His pulse quickened with both excitement and fear. This was it. This was where the voice had guided him. He didn't know what awaited him on the planet's surface, but for the first time in days, Mark felt a spark of hope. Little did he know, his journey was about to take a turn he never could have imagined. The ship's engines hummed again as he prepared for landing, unaware that the alien girl who had invited him to her planet was watching from afar, waiting for him to arrive. Mark's ship descended toward the surface of the strange planet, the glowing orb growing larger in his view. The lush landscapes below him seemed to pulse with life, and for the first time in days, he felt a sense of excitement. He had no idea what awaited him, but the idea of landing on a new world filled him with curiosity. As the ship touched down on the soft grass of the alien planet, the engines slowly powered down, and a deep silence settled in. Mark unbuckled his seatbelt and glanced out the window. The sky was a soft, pale green, dotted with faint wisps of clouds. Strange trees with bioluminescent leaves stretched high into the air, their colors shifting like a rainbow. The air smelled fresh, like a forest after rain, and the temperature was perfect. Before he could gather his thoughts, the ship's hatch opened with a gentle hiss, and a breeze rushed in. Mark stood, his legs unsteady as he stepped out of the ship. His boots sank slightly into the soft, glowing grass beneath him. The ground was stable, yet it felt otherworldly, almost like walking through a dream. The alien girl was standing a few feet away, waiting for him. She was tall, with pale blue-purple skin that shimmered in the strange light of her world. Her hair was a soft silver, cascading in waves around her shoulders. Her eyes were the color of the brightest stars, glowing with a warmth that seemed to invite him in. "Welcome to my world," she said, her voice as soothing as it had been over the comms. There was a calm confidence in her demeanor, but also an undeniable kindness. She smiled at him, though it was clear she didn't expect any thanks. It was almost as if helping him was simply something she was meant to do. Mark cleared his throat, suddenly feeling awkward. I didn't expect this." He looked around at the beauty surrounding him, unsure of what to say. Everything was so perfect, so calm, that it felt surreal. The alien girl nodded as if she understood his confusion. "I know," she said, walking toward him. "I am Alira. This planet is called Listara, and it is my home. You've come at a time of great need." Mark raised an eyebrow, the feeling of unease returning. "You said you could help me. What do you need help with?" Alira's eyes softened. "All in good time," she said. "For now, you need rest. There is much to learn. Listara will answer your questions in its own way." She gestured for him to follow her, and Mark did, his feet hesitant but curious. As they walked, the landscape around them began to change. Giant trees with transparent trunks shimmered in the distance, their leaves glowing brightly. Birds that resembled floating orbs glided silently above, leaving trails of light in their wake. They approached a towering structure, its surface smooth and gleaming in the sunlight. Mark couldn't help but stare. It looked like a building, but unlike anything he had ever seen before. It wasn't made of any materials he recognized. It seemed to be a living structure, its walls almost breathing. "Is this your home?" Mark asked, awestruck. Alira smiled, nodding. "Yes. Come, there is much we must discuss. You are safe here, Mark. You will see." With that, the door opened, and Mark stepped into the unknown, his mind racing with questions he didn't yet have answers for. He had landed on this planet in search of help, but the more he saw, the more he realized there was something much larger at play. A mystery he was about to be drawn into, whether he liked it or not. Mark followed Alira through the glowing entrance of the strange building. As he stepped inside, he couldn't help but marvel at the design. The walls seemed to shimmer with an inner light, and the floors were smooth, almost as if made of a translucent stone that reflected his every step. The air inside was fresh, tinged with the scent of something sweet and calming, like fresh flowers mixed with the coolness of a distant breeze. Alira led him through several corridors, each more beautiful than the last. The entire place seemed alive, with plants growing along the walls, their tendrils gently moving as though they were breathing. Mark felt like he had stepped into a world that had no need for machines to survive. It was as if nature and technology had merged seamlessly, living in perfect harmony. "This is amazing," Mark said quietly, looking around. "I've never seen anything like it." Alira smiled, her eyes glowing with pride. "Listara is not like Earth," she explained. "Here, we believe in balance. Our technology is part of nature, not separate from it. We live with the planet, not on it. This is why Listara has lasted for so long." Mark nodded, trying to take it all in. He had always heard of futuristic cities and stories, but this place was different. It felt alive, as if the planet itself had a soul. "How do you live like this? Don't you need power plants or factories?" "We have power," Alira replied, "but not in the way you know it. We harness the energy of Listara itself, drawing from its natural forces, wind, water, sunlight, and the energy stored deep within the planet. We use this energy to sustain our cities, but we never take more than we need." Mark felt a deep respect for the planet's way of life. It was unlike anything he had ever imagined, a world that didn't exploit its resources, but worked with them. "So, you don't fight wars? There's no violence here." Alira's expression grew somber. "We have our share of challenges, just like any other civilization," she said. "But we believe that conflict can be resolved through understanding, not force. We do not fight for territory, for resources. We fight only when absolutely necessary, and even then we seek to preserve life. They came to a large chamber where several other aliens were gathered. They were similar to Alira, with the same pale blue-purple skin and glowing eyes, but there was something different about each of them. Some were older, their faces marked by the passage of time, while others were younger, full of energy and curiosity. It was clear that they were all part of a close-knit community, a family in the truest sense. Alira introduced Mark to the group, and they all greeted him warmly. They spoke of Lystera's history, of its struggles, and of their hopes for the future. Mark listened, fascinated by the depth of their culture. They were a people who valued knowledge, wisdom, and connection. Their lives were centered around their relationship with the planet, and they had an ancient understanding of the forces that govern the universe. As the conversation continued, Mark began to realize how little he knew of the universe beyond Earth. He had come here hoping for help, but he was starting to see that this world held secrets far beyond his comprehension. The alien girl, Alira, was not just offering him shelter. She was showing him a way of life he could hardly imagine, and yet he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more. Something hidden beneath the beauty of Lystera. Mark's curiosity deepened, and as he looked around at the peaceful faces of the aliens, he knew he was about to learn something that could change everything. As the sun began to set, casting a warm, golden glow across the land of Lystera, Mark sat in the central hall of Alira's home, deep in conversation with her and the others. The planet seemed peaceful, its harmony almost too perfect to be true. He was beginning to feel at home, despite the strange world around him. But even as Alira smiled and spoke of her people's history, Mark couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The conversation shifted when one of the elders, a tall, silver-haired alien named Valen, spoke up. His voice was grave, and his expression serious, unlike the calm demeanor of the others. "Mark, there is something we must share with you," he said. The room fell silent as Valen's eyes met Mark's. "Lystera is in danger." Mark blinked in surprise. "Danger? But you said everything here was in balance." Valen nodded slowly. "We have lived in peace for thousands of years, yes, but that peace is being threatened by a force we cannot control." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "The balance of our planet is delicate, and there is an ancient power beneath the surface that, if disturbed, could destroy everything we've built." Alira stepped forward, her eyes soft but filled with concern. "I didn't want to tell you so soon, Mark, but I need you to understand. This is why I brought you here. You are the key to saving us." Mark's heart raced. "The key? How am I supposed to help? I'm just a human who got lost in space." Alira placed a gentle hand on his arm. "It is not about being a human or an alien. It is about the energy that resides within you. You see, Mark, your kind, the humans, are not like the other species we've encountered. You are stronger than we are, in ways that we cannot yet fully understand. There is a power in you that can help us unlock what has been buried deep within our planet." Mark was confused. "What do you mean?" "I'm just a pilot, Alira. I don't have any special powers." Valen nodded. "You may not know it, but humans have an energy within them that can connect to the core of this planet. Long ago, our ancestors believed that one day a human would arrive who could wield that power and help us protect Lystera." Mark's mind raced. Could this be real? Was it possible that he was more than just a stranded pilot? He had come to Lystera with no idea of what awaited him, but now it seemed like fate had a hand in it. "But why me?" he asked, his voice filled with doubt. "I don't understand any of this. I'm just trying to get back home." Alira smiled sadly. "You were chosen, Mark. You are here because the time has come. The ancient power below our feet is stirring, and if we don't act quickly, it will be too late. Lystera could fall into chaos, and everything we've built will be lost." Mark stood, pacing nervously. He felt out of his depth, overwhelmed by the weight of the responsibility that had suddenly been thrust upon him. "So, what do I do?" How do I stop it? Valen's voice was calm but urgent. You must help us reach the core of Lystara. There lies the key to controlling the power that threatens us. But getting there will not be easy. The path is dangerous, and we are not the only ones aware of the power beneath our planet. Mark took a deep breath, his mind racing with the implications. This was no longer just about survival. It was about the fate of an entire planet, and it seemed like he was the one who had to save it. A part of him still couldn't believe it, but another part knew that he couldn't turn away now. He looked at Alyra, who stood silently watching him, her eyes filled with hope and trust. She believed in him. Mark didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't let them down. I'll do it, he said quietly, the weight of his decision sinking in. I'll help you save Lystara. The room was still for a moment before the others nodded in approval, their faces filled with gratitude. Mark had taken the first step, and there was no turning back now. Mark's decision had been made, but as he sat on the edge of a soft bed in a room filled with strange alien artifacts, he couldn't help but feel the weight of what was ahead. He had always lived a simple life, just a pilot, traveling from one planet to another, delivering goods, and occasionally taking on a few odd jobs. But now, he was being asked to help save an entire world. The task felt impossible. He ran his hands through his hair, trying to think through the jumble of thoughts racing through his mind. How could he, a mere human, help a planet of highly advanced beings? What did he even know about saving a planet? And why had he been chosen? There were too many questions, and no answers in sight. A soft knock at the door broke his thoughts. Mark stood up quickly, smoothing his jacket as he opened it. Alyra stood there, her eyes filled with warmth and understanding. She was always so calm, like nothing ever fazed her. It was one of the things he admired most about her. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice gentle, but there was an edge of determination in it. Mark nodded, though his nerves were still on edge. "I think so, but I can't help but feel like I don't know what I'm doing." Alyra smiled, stepping into the room. "None of us ever know when we start," she said, "but sometimes we are called to do things greater than ourselves. You don't have to understand everything. You just need to trust that you are here for a reason." Her words had a strange calming effect on him. He took a deep breath and followed her out of the room, ready to face whatever came next. Alyra led him through the corridors of her home, and this time Mark noticed the subtle beauty of the planet even more. The walls seemed to pulse with a soft, natural energy, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of alien flowers. There were no machines buzzing or engines humming. Everything here felt connected to the planet in a way he had never seen before. He could sense the harmony in the air, the way the people and the planet seemed to live as one. They reached a large room filled with glowing crystals and ancient writings carved into the walls. It looked like a place where knowledge was passed down through generations, a sanctuary of sorts. "This is where it all began," Alyra said, gesturing to the space around them. "Our ancestors left clues here, hidden deep in these crystals. They believed that one day someone would come who could use the energy of the planet to protect it. That person is you." Mark stared at the crystals, feeling a strange pull. There was an undeniable connection between this place and what he had been chosen to do, as if the planet itself was waiting for him to understand it, to unlock its secrets. Alyra stepped closer to him, holding a small glowing stone in her hand. "This is the key," she said. "It holds the power to connect you to the core of Lystara. But you must be ready. It will test you. It will show you your fears, your doubts. You must be strong." Mark swallowed hard, his throat dry. He wasn't sure he was ready for whatever was coming, but Alyra's confidence gave him strength. She believed in him, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough. He reached out and took the glowing stone from her, feeling its warmth pulse in his hand. As soon as his fingers made contact, a wave of energy surged through him. It was like nothing he had ever felt before, powerful, ancient, and alive. The stone seemed to hum, responding to his touch. "Let it guide you," Alira whispered. Mark closed his eyes, letting the energy of the stone flow through him. It was as if the planet was speaking to him, its secrets whispering in his mind. He felt connected to Lystara in a way that was beyond words, as if he had always belonged here. For the first time since he had arrived, Mark felt like he had found his true purpose. He wasn't just a lost pilot anymore. He was part of something much bigger than himself. "We have much to do," Mark said, his voice steady, filled with a newfound resolve. Alira smiled. "Yes, we do. And together, we will save Lystara." With that, Mark knew that the journey ahead would be long and difficult, but he was no longer afraid. He was ready. The following days were filled with preparation. Mark had no idea what exactly he was supposed to do, but Alira and the others guided him through the steps. They trained him in the ancient ways of their people, teaching him how to harness the energy of Lystara. Though Mark was a fast learner, it still felt overwhelming. He had always been a pilot, focused on flying and maintaining his ship, not on harnessing planetary energy or understanding ancient powers. But the more he trained, the more he could feel something growing inside him. It wasn't just the power from the planet. It was something else, something deep inside himself, like an untapped potential he hadn't known existed. One afternoon, as he was practicing the techniques with Alira, there was a sudden shift in the air. The birds above seemed to stop singing, and the wind died down, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Alira looked up, her expression suddenly tense. "They're here," she whispered, her voice low but urgent. "Who?" Mark asked, his heart pounding in his chest. Before Alira could respond, a figure emerged from the shadows of the forest. It was another alien, but unlike any Mark had seen before. The new figure was taller than the others, with darker skin and piercing eyes that seemed to glow with an unnatural light. He wore a dark cloak that fluttered in the wind, and his presence was commanding, almost intimidating. The alien's voice rang out across the clearing, deep and powerful. "I come with a warning." Mark stepped back, instinctively putting some distance between himself and the stranger. Alira stood firm, her posture defensive. "Who are you?" she demanded. The alien smiled slightly, revealing sharp teeth that glistened in the soft light. "My name is Cal. I am not an enemy, though I may appear to be one. I have knowledge that you will need if you are to survive the coming trials." Mark exchanged a confused glance with Alira. "What kind of knowledge?" Mark asked, his voice hesitant. Cal's expression grew serious. "You are attempting to access the core of Lystara, correct? To use its power to stop the ancient force that threatens your planet. But what you do not understand is that the force is not merely a threat. It is a part of this world, a part of the planet itself." Alira's eyes narrowed, and she took a step closer to Mark. "What do you mean by that?" Cal's glowing eyes flickered, and he took a slow, deliberate step forward. "Lystara is not just a peaceful world. It is a living entity. The core of the planet holds its soul, its consciousness, and that consciousness has been corrupted. The force you are fighting is not something that can be easily defeated. It is not just an enemy. It is a piece of Lystara's essence that has turned dark over time." Mark's mind raced as he tried to process what Cal was saying. The idea that the planet itself could be corrupted was something he had never considered. Everything they had believed about Lystara seemed to be crumbling before his eyes. "Why are you telling us this?" Alira asked, her voice steady but filled with suspicion. "Are you here to stop us?" Cal shook his head. "No, I am here to help you. But you must understand this truth. The planet itself is at war with itself. The energy you seek to harness could either save it or destroy it completely." Mark could feel the weight of his words sinking in. This wasn't just about stopping an external threat. The real battle was between the planet's own consciousness and the ancient energy that had been awakened. "You're saying we might be making things worse?" Mark asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Cal nodded slowly. "It is a possibility. But if you learn to control the power properly, if you can connect with Lystera's soul in the right way, you may be able to heal it. But it will require all of you, human and alien alike, and there will be sacrifices. Mark glanced at Alira, whose face was a mask of determination. She was trying to process Kel's words, but he could tell that she was afraid. The fate of her planet and its soul was now in their hands. "I will help you," Kel said, "but you must trust me. Together, we may have a chance, but only if you are willing to do whatever it takes." Mark's heart pounded in his chest. The journey ahead was suddenly more complicated than he could have ever imagined. But despite the uncertainty, he knew one thing. There was no turning back now. Whatever the cost, he had to see this through. He turned to Alira, who met his gaze. Her resolve was clear. "Let's do it," Mark said, his voice steady. "We'll fight for Lystara." With Kel's unexpected arrival, the path to saving Lystara had just become even more treacherous. But Mark was ready. He had to be. The following morning, Mark, Alira, and Kel gathered at the edge of the forest. They were preparing for the journey to the core of Lystara, a place Mark had only heard about in stories. He wasn't sure what to expect, but he knew that the journey would be dangerous. Everything about this planet seemed to be alive, and the deeper they went, the more uncertain he felt. Alira stood beside him, her face a mask of calm, but Mark could see the worry in her eyes. She had been raised with stories of the core, but no one from her world had ventured there in centuries. The planet's soul, hidden deep beneath the surface, was the heart of the struggle, both a source of power and a dangerous force that could tear Lystara apart. Kel led the way, his dark cloak flowing behind him like a shadow. His calm, confident demeanor made it seem as though he had walked this path many times before, though Mark had no idea who or what he really was. Kel was an enigma, and Mark couldn't help but feel that the alien held secrets he wasn't ready to hear. As they traveled through dense forests and over rocky terrain, the land around them seemed to shift and change, as though the planet itself was aware of their presence. The trees grew taller the deeper they went, their bioluminescent leaves casting strange shadows on the ground. Mark noticed that the air felt different too, charged with an energy that he couldn't quite place. It was as if the very atmosphere was alive, breathing with them. After hours of walking, the group reached a massive cliffside. Mark looked up at the towering rock face, his throat tight with apprehension. At the top of the cliff, nestled between two jagged peaks, was a narrow path that led deeper into the heart of the planet. "This is the entrance," Kel said, his voice echoing slightly in the stillness. He turned to Mark and Alira. "The path ahead is treacherous. We must move quickly, but carefully. The deeper we go, the more the energy of Lystara will fight us." Mark nodded, feeling the weight of Kel's words. The path ahead wasn't just a physical challenge, it was a spiritual one too. The planet's energy would be pulling at them, trying to protect its core from being disturbed. Alira stepped forward, her eyes focused on the path. "We'll be fine," she said softly. "We've come this far. We can't stop now." Mark gave her a determined look. "Right. We can't turn back." Together, they began to climb the cliff, Mark following closely behind Kel and Alira. The rocks beneath their feet were uneven and sharp, and the climb was exhausting. But they pressed on, knowing the fate of the planet rested in their hands. As they neared the top, a strange sensation washed over Mark. The air felt heavier, charged with an energy that seemed to pull at his very being. He paused for a moment, feeling the power beneath the surface, as though something deep within the planet was awakening. It was as if the core was aware of their presence and was preparing to test them. Kel turned to him, sensing his hesitation. "Stay focused, Mark," he said. "The core is calling us. But remember, it will not give up its power easily." Mark nodded, tightening his grip on the rocks. His heart raced, and his thoughts were a whirlwind of doubts and questions. He didn't know what he was about to face, but one thing was clear. Whatever happened next, It was too late to turn back. With each step, the air seemed to grow more intense, the pull of the planet stronger. Mark could feel it deep inside him now, an ancient force that both terrified and fascinated him. As they reached the top of the cliff and began their descent into the unknown, he knew that the true battle was only just beginning. The core was waiting for them, and it would decide if they were worthy of its power, or if they would become part of its dark history. The path down the cliff led them into a vast cavern, its walls glowing with a soft, eerie light. The air was thick with tension, and Mark felt his heart pounding in his chest as they moved deeper into the belly of Lystara. He had no idea what awaited them, but he knew it wouldn't be easy. The energy in the air felt like a living thing, as though the planet itself was watching them, testing them with each step. Kale, who had been silent for most of the journey, suddenly spoke. "This is it. The core is just beyond this chamber, but be warned, it will fight us. The energy here is not friendly." Mark glanced at Alira, whose face was calm but her eyes were filled with determination. She stepped closer to him, and without saying a word, placed her hand on his arm. He could feel her warmth and strength, and for a brief moment, it gave him a sense of peace. They were in this together. "Stay close," Alira said, her voice steady. "We have to work as one if we want to succeed." Mark nodded. They had come this far. There was no turning back now. The chamber ahead was massive, its high ceiling lost in shadows. Strange, crystal-like structures rose from the ground, their surfaces shimmering with an unnatural glow. The deeper they walked, the more intense the energy became. Mark could feel it pulling at him, trying to drown him in its power. It was as though the planet's soul was alive, aware of their presence and angry that they had come this far. Then, at the center of the chamber, they saw it. A swirling mass of energy, glowing with a blinding light. It was the core of Lystara, the heart of the planet itself. But something was wrong. The energy that once seemed so peaceful and harmonious was now twisted, dark, and chaotic. It pulsed violently, as though it were fighting against the very life that sustained it. "It's corrupted," Alira whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "The darkness has consumed it. This is what we've been trying to stop." Kale stepped forward, his expression hardening. "The core is the planet's soul. If it is lost, so is Lystara. We must restore the balance before it consumes everything." Mark looked at the swirling mass of energy, fear gripping him. "How do we stop it?" Kale's eyes met his. "You must connect with it. You are the key, Mark. You have the strength to reach its heart." Mark hesitated. He had no idea how to do what Kale was asking, but he could feel it now, the power within him, a connection to something deeper, something older. The energy of Lystara seemed to call to him, pulling at his very soul. It was as if the planet had chosen him, and it was time for him to accept that role. He stepped forward, feeling Alira's eyes on him, but he didn't look back. He had come this far. He had no choice but to trust in himself. As he approached the core, a wave of energy crashed over him. It was overwhelming, suffocating, but he fought it. Mark closed his eyes and reached out with his mind, focusing on the core's pulse. Slowly, he felt a connection form, an understanding. He could feel the pain, the anger, the fear of Lystara. The planet had been corrupted, but it still yearned for balance. "Focus," Cal's voice echoed in his mind. "Let it flow through you." Mark took a deep breath, letting the energy fill him. It was unlike anything he had ever felt, both terrifying and beautiful at the same time. Slowly, he began to understand. The core wasn't just a force of destruction. It was a force of life, twisted and corrupted by an ancient darkness. And now, it was up to him to heal it. With all the strength he had, Mark reached into the core's energy, pushing back against the darkness, restoring the balance that had been lost. The power surged within him, overwhelming, but he held on. The energy of Lystara fought him, but he was stronger. He had to be. And then, with a final push, the core's energy began to calm. The chaotic swirling of darkness slowed, and for the first time, Mark felt the peace of the planet's true soul. The chamber fell silent. The energy around them shifted, softening, as if the planet was breathing again, alive and whole. Mark dropped to his knees, exhausted but relieved. The battle was over. Elira rushed to his side, her face filled with relief. "You did it, Mark. You saved Lystara." Cale stepped forward, his eyes filled with a mixture of respect and gratitude. "You've done what no one else could. Lystara is restored." Mark looked up at the now peaceful core, feeling a strange sense of connection to the planet. He had come here lost, unsure of his purpose. But now he understood. He had been part of something far bigger than himself, something that would last long after he was gone. As the light from the core bathed the chamber in warmth, Mark smiled. He had found his place in the universe, and Lystara had found its peace once again. The air around Mark was calm now, the intense energy that had filled the chamber only moments ago replaced by a peaceful silence. The core of Lystara, once dark and corrupted, now pulsed with a gentle, steady light, as if it were breathing. Mark remained kneeling on the ground, his body drained of energy. His heart was racing, but his mind felt clearer than it ever had before. He had done it. The darkness that had plagued Lystara's soul was gone, replaced by a healing force. Elira knelt beside him, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. Her face was filled with both awe and relief. "You did it, Mark," she said softly. "Lystara is safe." Mark looked up at the glowing core, his breath steadying. The energy he had felt just moments ago, the struggle against the darkness, seemed like a dream now. But the calm in the chamber was real. The planet was at peace. He had saved it, though he didn't fully understand how. The power that had surged through him was something beyond words, something ancient and eternal. "I can't believe it's over," Mark whispered. "I never thought I could do it." Elira smiled, her eyes shining with gratitude. "You didn't just do it, Mark. You understood it. You became a part of Lystara's soul. You healed it." She paused, looking down at the glowing core. "The planet's soul, its essence, is connected to you now. It will never forget what you've done." Mark stood slowly, still feeling the weight of what he had experienced. He was exhausted, but a sense of peace settled over him. He felt connected to the planet, as if the core itself was whispering its thanks. It was an overwhelming feeling, but in a way, it made him feel whole. He had found his place, not just on this world, but in the universe. Cale, who had been standing silently in the background, now stepped forward, his expression serious but filled with respect. "You have done what no one thought possible," he said. "Lystara owes you its life. The balance has been restored." Mark turned to Cale, still processing everything. "I didn't do it alone," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "You, Elira, you both helped me. Without you, I wouldn't have made it." Cale nodded, acknowledging the truth in Mark's words. "But you were the key. You were the one who could connect with the planet in a way that none of us could. The power of Lystara is in you now." Mark looked at Elira, who was watching him with a smile that spoke volumes of the trust and respect she had for him. I didn't expect any of this," he said quietly. "I came here just trying to survive. I never imagined I would be the one to save the planet." Elira placed a hand on his arm. "Sometimes, Mark, we are given challenges we never asked for, and sometimes we rise to meet them in ways we never thought possible." Mark nodded, his heart swelling with emotion. He had come to Lystara a stranger, lost in space, with no idea of his purpose. But now he felt like he had found something far greater than survival. He had found his place in the universe, and in a way, the universe had found a place for him. The group stood in silence for a moment, letting the peaceful energy of Lystara wash over them. It was a moment of reflection, a moment of understanding. The battle was over. The planet had been saved, and its soul had been healed. As the light from the core continued to shine, Mark looked up at the sky. For the first time since he had arrived on Lystara, he felt truly at peace. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew that whatever came next, he would face it with the strength and courage he had found within himself. Lystara was safe, and he had played a part in its salvation. And that was enough for him. The days that followed were filled with a quiet, healing peace. Mark and Alira spent most of their time near the core, watching as the energy of the planet shifted from chaotic darkness to a gentle, soothing glow. It was as if the planet itself was breathing again, taking in deep, peaceful breaths after years of suffering. Mark had come to understand that this was not just a victory for Lystara. It was a victory for all living things that could find balance and harmony within themselves. But despite the calm around him, Mark knew his time on Lystara was coming to an end. The planet was healing, and its people, led by Alira, were now able to return to their lives, to their homes, knowing that the threat had passed. But Mark's place was not here. He had a life to return to, if it was still waiting for him. One evening, as the sun set over the glowing landscape, Mark sat with Alira at the edge of a shimmering lake. The sky was painted with hues of purple and orange, and the soft hum of the planet's energy filled the air. For the first time in weeks, Mark felt completely at peace. But deep down, he knew he had to go home. "I wish you could stay," Alira said quietly, breaking the silence. She turned to face him, her eyes filled with both sadness and understanding. "Lystara will always be a part of you now. You've healed its heart." Mark smiled, but it was bittersweet. "I wish I could stay too, but I belong somewhere else. I came here to survive, but I found something much bigger. I found a purpose." He looked at her, his gaze soft. "But my home, Earth, needs me too." Alira nodded slowly, her expression a mix of acceptance and sorrow. "I understand. You've done more for us than we could ever repay. And yet, you must go back to your world. Perhaps one day, the path will bring you back." Mark stood and offered his hand to Alira, who took it with a gentle smile. "I won't forget what I've learned here," he said. "And I won't forget you." She smiled, her eyes sparkling with warmth. "You will always be welcome on Lystara, Mark. You will always have a place here." As Mark turned to leave, Cale approached him, his eyes thoughtful. "You've proven that humanity has a strength we didn't understand," Cale said. "You are not just a pilot anymore, Mark. You are a guardian of this world's balance. That power, that connection to Lystara, will never leave you." Mark nodded, grateful for Cale's words, but unsure of what his future would hold. Would he be able to carry this new understanding of himself back to Earth? Would the world there even be ready for what he had become? As he stepped into the ship that had brought him here, Mark looked one last time at the alien landscape that had changed his life. The towering trees, the glowing lakes, the peace that filled the air. He would carry it with him. Lystara had given him a new sense of purpose. But now he had to find his way back to his own world and share the lessons he had learned. The ship powered up, and as it slowly lifted off the ground, Mark felt a sense of finality settle over him. The stars stretched out before him, each one a reminder of the vastness of the universe. But this time, he wasn't lost. This time, he knew exactly where he belonged. And as the ship sailed through the vast emptiness of space, Mark realized that no matter how far apart they were, Lystara would always be with him, a part of his heart, guiding him on whatever journey lay ahead.